place 20 years in the future.
Post-apocalyptic, post-pulse world.
All you do have is your clothes on your back and the food in the refrigerator that's going stale because the power's been cut off.
One of the challenges was, of course, to say, we can do this and make it look real.
It's a future that probably resembles the Great American Depression of the 30s more than what you might anticipate a kind of high-tech future to be.
Seattle is the perfect city because Seattle with a Space Needle, that iconic image so you know exactly where you are. And Seattle is really the city of the future. So what happens if we show that city now in some sort of a decay, you know, graffiti all over the Space Needle? It just really set the tone for the show that we wanted to do.
To convey this broken world in production design, yet keep the spirit alive, was the tightrope that we had for every episode. It was that fine edge. They didn't want it to be depressing. They wanted to have it be hopeful.
It does kind of break the elegant atmosphere.
A sort of a model for what this future looks like is Havana today. I mean, essentially after the revolution in 1959, technology and society just stopped. It just froze in its tracks.
The palette is still very rich. The people are very vibrant. You know, they have a sense of purpose.
We actually ended up making a sound fiscal decision about shooting the show in Canada, but for creative reasons, because Vancouver just doubled beautifully for Seattle.
Honey, I'm home.
Well, the biggest challenge with creating a post-apocalyptic world, especially in the city of Vancouver, was the fact that Vancouver is one of the cleanest, most beautiful cities in the world. Basically, to create each world, we had 8 days. Scouting through downtown Seattle, there's several really cool bridges, and what we did was we took photos of the bridges. And the cool thing about doing a motion picture set is the fact that we get to take the best elements out of everything we see, and then we come up with our own hybrid. And again, this bridge here, although it looks like it's cast iron, is just simply some wood posts. What we would do, because we needed graffiti at almost every location we were at, so we would roll out hundreds of feet of plastic and have them graffiti on this plastic, and then we'd hang it over a chain link fence and we just cart it to every location we went to, and we always had an interesting background. One of the other key elements to our world was the fact that since the infrastructure was broken, everybody was kind of borrowing from whatever power source, water source was available. So what we got was this wonderful graphic of all these power lines and water pipes. What we're looking at right here is one of the infamous Dark Angel tunnels. These are a series of tunnels that we built knowing that we had to stay underground and have some interesting places to sneak and creep. These may look like real pipes, but in fact they are nothing but plastic. And with very good paint jobs and some texture thrown in to boot, sell very well as a tunnel under any street in any town.
We scanned Jessica in the computer. We did a face scan and a body scan and put together a CG Max so that we could use that CG character to do stunts that were beyond what was physically possible to do. Well, the drones were interesting because the decision had already been made that these drones would be done practically. So they had people already at work building actual full-size models of the drones. The problem was that they sort of didn't work. So we ended up recreating the drones in the computer, and once we had them in the computer, we could fly them however we wanted to do them.
Have you ever been up on the Space Needle?
No. At one point we were thinking about shooting the Space Needle practically. In other words, actually going to the Space Needle and shooting it.
We actually took a helicopter flight down to the Space Needle to see how we were going to do this.
We went up on this ladder, and there we were standing on the Space Needle and asking, you know, if we could like put graffiti all over it and distress it.
I actually stood on the roof of the Space Needle, and I wanted someone to take a picture of me so I could send it to James and say that I was going to go out on the edge for him.
David Nutter standing at the edge of the Space Needle looking down. It was really horrifying. I couldn't do it.
But we decided probably after that experience that the best thing we could do was to create a CGI Seattle.
At that point, Alon Soltis told us that this is something that we could do as an effect shot.
We actually were able to uncover the original architectural plans for the Space Needle, and essentially in the computer built the Space Needle as it had been built. And then the next step was sort of altering it to match the premise of the show, deciding, well, how beat up the Space Needle was supposed to be. The Space Needle probably took us maybe 6 to 8 weeks to build.
The Space Needle, it's iconic for Seattle. It's a lonely place, you know. It's Moses up on the mount, you know. It's somebody up in a lofty place looking down, not really part of what's down there, and there's a sadness about it and a yearning, and it's beautiful, and it's a cool shot.